during your time as the Minister of Agriculture, we've made a lot of strides. So once upon a time, not too long ago, we were a nation spending, and I quote you in some of your interviews where you mentioned that we spent over $5 million a day importing rice. Rice being such a staple for Northern Nigerians in our diet, that's from a food security standpoint, that's very risky. So last we spoke, you mentioned that Nigeria has stopped importing rice, which is phenomenal. And so my question is that, have we really stopped importing rice? And if so, like, how is this happening? What policies and programs have helped to get us to this point? Is the rice that we are currently producing by ourselves sufficient for our consumption? So do we want to start with those questions, Chief Audu?
Thank you very much. First, let me say it is a privilege for me to be talking to you, all of you, and to thank you for showing interest. I think that gives me a lot of hope. It means we're heading somewhere. Now, we began with agriculture in this country. North, east, west, south, wherever. Unfortunately, somewhere along the road, we forgot agriculture because we discovered oil and gas and became a rent economy. So we became importers of everything. In the last 4 years, yes, we stopped importing rice, even shut our borders because smuggling rice was still a business. And the smugglers were determined to destroy local production.
Right.
Now, in cutting down rice importation and in fact bringing it to a halt, I'll tell you what we've gained. First, we're saving $5 million a day on the average. Number two, we have created 14 million jobs on the farms for small and big time farmers growing rice. But we're still a long way from achieving total self-sufficiency in rice. We are consuming about 7 to 8 million tons of rice per annum. Local production is slightly under that, so smugglers are still trying to find their way to come in. But by the year 2050, we're going to need nearly 9 million tons of rice to feed Nigerians annually. So we've made strides. We still have a long way to go. We need, between now and 2050, to build at least 200 giant rice mills in the country. Right now, we have just 42 integrated mills, about 3,000 small mills, mainly in Kura, in Kano, and in Ebonyi State, then in Lafia, then in Benue, and some in Niger, Jigawa, and parts of Kebbi is the biggest hub today. We haven't quite got there, but the encouraging thing is that we're heading there. We still have to procure more machinery, engage more people, and make sure that nothing stops us on the journey to self-sufficiency. However, we have enemies. There are those who don't like the idea because if we save $5 million a day, it means somebody somewhere is losing $5 million a day. And don't forget that over the years, foreigners have found this country a gold mine. They've found it a very sweet economy for dumping everything on us, from toothpicks, which cost us over $20 million a year to bring in, to tomato paste, $400 million, to sugar and wheat and milk. The list is endless. We produce almost nothing as a country because we had oil revenues and people advised us it was cheaper to import. Importation has brought us where we are now. No jobs, insecurity, young men and women with nothing to do in the villages, while the little money we earn from oil is going to sustain foreign economies.
Right.
I'll quickly tell you where we were in the 60s. We were number 2 producer of groundnut in the world. Today, we are the 2nd producer of sorghum. Between 1950 and 1967, Nigeria accounted for 44% of the total production of palm oil in the world. We're now down to 4%. We were number 2 producer of cocoa in the world. We're now down to number 7. We're now the 4th largest producer of cashew in the world, but we're not processing at home. We are producers of sesame seed, of gum arabic. We do beans. The Chinese are looking for 2 million tons of soybeans from Nigeria. We can't produce them. So a whole lot of things, they can happen all over again if the policies are right. What we need to do is to get people in this country at the leadership level to recognize that they have a duty to make sure that we do not fall victim to the propaganda that importation is better than production. And number two, like you said, will be 450 million in 25 years from now. What do we do then?
Right.
How do we feed ourselves? These are the questions that will answer in the course of our discussion.
Absolutely. And those are the key challenging questions. And I do wish one of our speakers, Shehu Malumfashi, was in here today, because he himself is a big scale farmer. And he does have experience of what it's like for him as a farmer to see how we are producing and trying to sustain our population. What I will do is I will move to Samuel, who is with us. Hello, Samuel. Yourself, you have experience in the industry, right? So you've been producing agricultural innovations such as the nets and farmhouses and greenhouses to try to move the agricultural industry forward when it comes down to making sure that we can sustain ourselves. So tell me your experience of how Nigeria has changed over the years for you, and what kind of support and policies you're getting to try to maintain your business. So you're unmuted, we can hear you.
Okay, hi everyone. It's really nice to be here and to be on as a panelist on the program this evening. It's really my pleasure to be here. First of all, I will start by saying that the experience has been good. It's been difficult, but it's what they stress at the end of the day, if I may put it that way. Like we all know, doing business in Nigeria can be quite difficult. I started greenhouse farming in 2012, and by 2015, 2016, the agricultural sector in Nigeria opened up so well that some of us who are small-scale farmers, have been able to upgrade and try to play along with some of our big clients in the country, which means that some of the policies that the federal government has tried to do has been, to be honest, very, very helpful for some of us. So I would say it's looking up now, because access to finance has greatly improved, and some of us are able to upgrade our facilities, even though there are still challenges here and there. But we think that with the listening ear of the government now, and then some of the issues that we have as operators in the industry, when we present them, we think that if the issues of access to finance has improved as it is now, we expect that the other aspects, which include, I would say, issues of importation of equipment, the ones that are not locally fabricated or manufactured in Nigeria, and them being affordable, and then the issues of technical know-how, which can be private sector driven, but we expect, we hope that some push from the government will be able to make that also available to people, to be able to continue in the development of greenhouse farming. Let me be specific. That's what I do. So I think it's all looking up well, and
okay.
We think that with time things will improve better than it is now.
Thank you. And so I suppose you've seen the real impact of some of the policies then that have been put in place, and you've seen some of the real support that have been put in place. Chief Audu Ogbeh, I know during your time you've made a lot of programs and initiatives to try to help with the issues in Nigeria. I know you've done some of the programs like the Livelihood Improvement Family Enterprises and the ANCO Borrowers Program. So are those the kind of programs, the initiatives that Samuel is seeing the impacts as he speaks currently?
Absolutely. Samuel made a point which I must agree with very quickly. One of the biggest obstacles to agriculture over the last 40 years, which demoralized a lot of people, especially young people, was a regime of impossible interest rates. Between 1986 and literally just 2016, interest rates in these banks in this country stood at between 30 and 35%. And I kept crying out. I'm not a banker, I'm not an economist, but I kept asking them, how can anyone take a loan at 35% interest and pay back? Unless the person is producing cocaine or something.
Right. And even then, right.
Exactly, even then. Now, and I kept saying so now. We, the older ones, were watching young people trying to do things in agriculture, in industry, in ICT, and we saw the barriers standing in their way. And we knew that Nigeria was definitely coming to a crash. Because if you have a country where the youths who have ideas and dreams that even their parents didn't have, blocked, totally cut off from access to finance, and they can't do what they want to do, and they are frustrated,
right.
Then you are destroying your country. Definitely. So that's why we came up with the Anchor Borrowers Program, and that's why interest rates in some areas are even dropping to as low as 5%.
That's a great.
But there's still a long way to go. We don't have enough mechanization. We don't have enough irrigation. There should be more greenhouses. There should be more reduced taxes, better fertilizers, organic chemicals, to encourage young people to do things that their parents and some of us older ones never could imagine.
Right.
Because we have a market, and we have energy, and we have intelligent young people who really want to do things, but find the doorway closed against them. Interest rates have to go further down. I'm still clamoring for nothing higher than 5%, between 3 and 5% for agriculture as a national policy. And I think we'll get there.
Right. So thank you very much. So what I want to do actually is I want to hear from Alhaji Shehu Malumfashi, and I suppose you're under Professor Umar Ahmed. So I'm going to unmute you now. Let me know if you can hear, if you can speak. There we go. You have the floor. So my question to you is, since as someone who's been in the industry since 1983, how's the agricultural sector changed for you? What impacts have you seen of these kind of changes in policy in your farming industry? We can't hear you, unfortunately.
Oh.
Professor? Hello, assalamu alaikum, Munajin. Hello? So I suppose you're under Professor Umar Ahmed. All right, so what we'll do is we'll move on.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Professor Umar Ahmed.
Hello?
Hello?
Hello, yeah, we can hear you.
Well, my take on that is that we need to hello?
Hello, yes, we can hear you.
Hello?
Hello, Munajinka. All right, what we'll do, hello, we can hear you.
Okay, I said my take on that is that we need to really get ready.
So unfortunately, I don't know if anyone else is struggling to hear our speaker for now. So what we'll do is we'll... So can you hear our speaker today? Okay. So yeah, maybe later. Unfortunately, we're having some tech issues, kind of hard to hear when our speaker is speaking. So what we'll do is we'll move to Nasir Yammama. So you're a creative entrepreneur. So you're a creative technologist, and you've been an entrepreneur in with your business like Verdant Agritech. And my question to you is, what challenges have you faced as a tech innovator trying to reach farmers and trying to innovate and improve the industry? And do you think the government policies are impacting you? So my question is, do you think government from a federal and state level have really engaged the tech guys like you when it comes down to policy making and implementation?
Thanks very much. As regards the challenges, most of the things I would have said have already been touched by the eloquent speeches of both Chief Audu and Mr. Samuel.
Right.
I definitely think there's a huge challenge when it comes to farmers, being both the most conservative part of the Nigerian population and sometimes the poorest. So economic power is low. Sometimes there are a lot of barriers to access, like literacy, like the sheer isolation of smallholders. Whether we like it or not, most of the smallholder farmers in Nigeria are isolated from so many things like financial inclusion, like infrastructure, ranging from roads to storage to a lot of things. And you can totally see why agricultural transformation in Nigeria is difficult. So we must, commend any effort that seems to even put a dent on agricultural productivity, because for agricultural transformation to succeed, it has to touch smallholder farmers who are in the millions in Nigeria. Policies of government like the Commercial Agriculture Credit Scheme and others are not so popular as anchor borrowers, for instance, because they are targeted at people who, have access to these things that smallholder farmers lack. On the other hand, the anchor borrower program is so famous and successful because it's targeted at smallholders who, from the majority, so it's really simple economics and simple logic. Now, as entrepreneurs trying to solve problems, I'm sure if I asked anybody here how many agri-tech ventures they know, the most popular ones are the crowdfunding ones that provide finance for farmers. And it is directly related to Chief Audu Ogbeh's statement that farmers have no access to agricultural credit and loan. And that's why even entrepreneurs are trying to find avenues other than the traditional orthodox financial institutions like banks to provide farmers with finance. And that's basically what all of us have been trying to do. In my case, I have been dedicated for the past 4 years to agricultural data and how that can be used to enhance agricultural productivity, especially for the smallholder farmer. And to quickly jump on another thing that I heard in the course of the conversation about rice production, is I'm really interested in how that panned out. In fact, how our productivity or production, both in terms of value and volume, has been for the past 6-7 years, especially since the agricultural promotion policy, which is an amazing piece of policy, by the way, started. We're talking, like Chief Audu Ogbeh has said, 8 to 10 million metric tons of rice, right? And that demand, that market, which is also 8 to 10 billion dollars, is growing at 3% per annum. And our production, domestic production, by the way, is at, I think, 1 to 2% per annum. So you can see that domestic production is not quite able to satisfy the market demand, which is a huge problem. And if you further analyze the data that we have, which I've told you I've been collecting, 50% of that volume and value is not there, which means despite the closure of the border, despite the valiant effort of the government, there's still loopholes. Something is happening. And I like the approach or the stand of Chief Audu Ogbeh when he said we have enemies. Well, we do, but that's what happens when the policy, it's not far-reaching. The only institution in the world or in Nigeria that can deal with enemies is the government. Right. So I absolutely feel like there's no excuse to say that we have enemies. We need to clamp down on the enemies. We need to push them back and support farmers. I'll keep quiet there.
Absolutely. Thank you for your point there, Nasir Yammama. So Chief Audu Ogbeh, great. Now you have the floor. Then explain to us how the enemies that we have get away with all of this and what policies are in place to try to avoid all of this.
Well, very quickly, I thank the last speaker. He got the point quite right. Now, there was a time when just about a year and a half ago, I pushed for border closure. And I actually announced it. And then I found that even within the establishment, there were people who were not very comfortable. And the World Bank came out and announced that we were losing $5 billion a year to smuggling across the Benin-Nigeria border alone. Not only for rice, but frozen chicken, frozen fish, tomato paste, including weapons and so on. They said $5 billion was getting lost to the Nigerian economy and petroleum products. And so we said, listen, we can't go on this way because people are dumping things and demoralizing local production. I had people come to me saying, listen, if you can play a game with us, right, look the other way, get permission from the president so that we can bring in some more rice since you are not able to meet your targets at home. Mm. And I knew clearly, if I fell into that trap, the efforts we've made so far would never have happened. Because if you let them bring in 1 million tons officially, they'll bring in 2. If you allow 2, they bring in 4. And once they bring in 4 million tons, they demoralize a small rice farmer in Jigawa, in Kebbi, in Ebonyi, in Anambra, in Benue, in Ogun, wherever. So we shut the borders. Even then, the smugglers have not stopped. They haven't stopped. Right. So they keep arresting them, but the profit margin is so huge, like the last speaker said, that they're willing to go to any length. So the answer is keep the borders shut, increase domestic production by supporting local producers with machinery, cheaper credit, more irrigation, so we can produce at least 2.5 crops of rice per annum. Right. We still have a gap.
Okay.
But the answer is yes, enemies, yes. Some of them are not enemies that government can see. They are smugglers. They are conniving with officials in government. They are using all sorts of means, bribery, whatever they can do, knowing that this is too big a market for them to lose, and that once they can cross the border and get in, that they're in paradise. Right. And these guys are prepared to make sure that we fail where they succeed.
Great points there.
That's the problem.
I suppose what you're saying is the key issue here is the smugglers who are able to get in and get away with demoralizing our local farmers. But are there actions being taken to try to clamp down on these smugglers? Like, what are we doing to reduce?
Oh, lots of them. But quite frankly, in the last 6 months to 8 months, the government has really dealt with them very severely. Many have been arrested. Their goods have been seized and distributed to the IDP camps. But they never give up. There is a company, for instance, in Nigeria that pretends to be investing in agriculture. They come to me, or they came to me when I was minister, and said to me, "Oh, we're doing a big rice mill in Kano, in Jigawa, in wherever, right? But a subsidiary of theirs is in charge of smuggling across the Republic of Benin border. Okay. Because the Beninois do not eat parboiled rice; they eat white rice. Yet these people bring in 2 million tons of parboiled rice through the Republic of Benin and smuggle it into Nigeria.
Right. So,
and there was a time I said to them, if we have to go the extra way, we may have to deport some of you using the most extraordinary means with or without courts. And people said, oh, the rule of law. But these guys, quite frankly, they don't love Nigeria.
So clearly,
unfortunately, Nigerians connive with them.
Right. So unfortunately, there's a bigger issue here, right? And I suppose, Nasir Yammama, when you're using and collecting your data on what we need for food and sustaining ourselves, are you taking into account these kind of issues that Chief Audu Ogbeh has mentioned?
Certainly. I think the very basis of my work is, based on the premise that for too long we've been collecting data as just, a bunch of zeros and ones. We forget that agriculture is a value chain game, and it involves so much complexities that could be, lost when you write down just a number. Corruption is a reality, insecurity is a reality, and a lot of other things. But, to make it clear, to show how agricultural production or lack of it is as a sheer result of our not being value chain oriented. If you take into consideration everything that has been said from start, especially from Chief Audu Ogbeh's speeches, you would know that Nigeria is, the problem is not unsurmountable. It's easy, we can track these things. As far as agriculture is treated as a value chain game, which we do. So we don't just collect data from the viewpoint of the farmer, right? We understand that there are farm inputs companies. We understand that there are financial institutions, from banks to insurance companies. We understand that there are logistics companies, transportation, storage, so many of these things. However, if it's not a market-driven value chain approach, it never works, because the demand is there. If you don't feed it, the smugglers would have to chip in.
So now that we're talking about the fact that it is a value chain, right? So let's look at this whole value chain. Let's start from the very small, the small scale farmer. Now, Samuel, you would probably have interfaced with some of the small scale farmers when you are trying to produce your innovations with the greenhouses and irrigation systems. How have you seen your business as you're interfacing with the small scale farmers? Are the policies able to impact these small scale farmers? Are you able to reach them with your innovations?
Well, some of the challenges of the small scale farmers are access to information, because a lot of them are very willing and lots of them have been farmers for a very long time. So when there is no access to information, they kind of like don't know what direction the agricultural trends are going. So technologies like greenhouses, irrigations, I'm sure are things that they would want to use to help them enhance their production. But a lot of them are not aware, and a lot of them don't have access. That access to finance is very key, because with that you'll be able to scale up. Productions on all fronts. So that's the major challenge. That's one of the major challenges that I know the ones I interact with are facing. And then access to markets, because which is also private sector driven, is something that some of us who are already in the field will be able to give them, because if we scale our productions and move them along in terms of access to markets, it will be easier for them to access to markets than to leave that responsibility to them, because like I said earlier, that access to information is also a challenge for them because of the rural areas they live in.
Right. So let's hold on to that part of access to information. So Nasir Yammama, you're the big tech guy and you're the data-driven guy, right? So how are you able to impart your information onto the small-scale farmer? For example, in Katsina, where you're from, how are you able to provide this information to your small-scale farmers so they can innovate and improve themselves in their agricultural system?
Yeah, so that's a big challenge. When we started, built a mobile phone app, but you very well know majority of smallholder farmers do not have smartphones, nor do they have access to broadband or internet or any of that. So we had to leverage on feature phones or low-end phones, text, voice, radio, and a lot of what we've done, especially in Plateau, Benue, Kano.
Sorry, I think you've cut off there for 5 seconds.
Has been multilingual and has been around all market. And currently, with the support of the Katsina state government, we're building something, we've been building a platform called the Katsina State Sustainable Platform for Agriculture, CASPA. So this is supposed to be a brick and mortar data center, whereby, just like you have a bank, you have this for agricultural data. The target is you have dedicated young people who are, conversant with the locality, and they are basically serving farmers in terms of information, whether it's financial information, whether it's good agricultural practices, whether it's, access to market, anything that the farmer needs. We have a center for it, and we employ and do all the heavy lifting in terms of the technology, in terms of AI and all of that. And all the farmer does is consume functional information for decision making. This is the first of its kind, and we have demonstrated how it worked in the states I mentioned. And I think I'll share some link to more information for anyone interested.
That's very great, and that's a great example of partnering up with a local state government to try to help innovations. Yeah. Now, Chief Audu Ogbeh, have you provided support for the likes of the tech guys and the tech industry trying to improve the agricultural industry from a federal level? Are you providing support, if any, that you know of?
Well, what we do is that because agriculture is on the concurrent list, we meet at the level of the National Agricultural Policy annual meetings, and we talk to commissioners in states. I may say here that not all states are responding as well as we expect them to. Some states are doing amazing things. Some are just rather laid back. At the end of the meeting, some commissioners are even afraid to brief their governors on what we've decided. And the federal government does not farm. We don't own a farm. We should never try to because it will be a failure. So the point made by the last speaker is quite true. First, agricultural practices and training and information is not doing too well here because we did in the days past when we had the World Bank agricultural program, we had extension workers and they were very effective. The program ended many years ago, and since then we haven't been able to restore the scheme because the federal government alone can't pay, and the state governments, some state governments don't have the funds or are not sufficiently interested in incorporating this system. So first, the ministry at the federal level creates programs like the agricultural promotion policy, which I call the green alternative, was my program when I came in. The idea was expand production, give inputs. And some of the good inputs that we were using were actually started by my predecessor, who started a program of seed multiplication, improved rice seeds especially, in places like Kebbi and so on. So farmers had access to improved seeds, so they had better yields. And then with the Anchor Borrowers program, credit came to smaller farmers. Like one earlier speaker said, you can achieve nothing here if you don't reach the smaller farmer. Absolutely. Because they have the numbers. Absolutely. But we're still not doing enough for them.
Absolutely.
It's possible for a Nigerian farmer to get 10 tons of maize per hectare instead of 2, because his counterpart in the United States can get 15 tons. The farmer doesn't get the best seeds. He doesn't even know how to plant. He leaves a gap of 1.5 meters between one plant and another. In Spain, it's 6 inches apart. A lot of this education, good seeds, good practices, good fertilizers, irrigation and so on, which we don't have, are the things mitigating against proper production. But what we need to do is energize the cooperatives, men and women, and then the government should increase activities of train and increase the activities of extension workers, because without that, the bulk of those feeding Nigeria, who are the small farmers, can never get very far. And the final thing we want to do is to restructure the Bank of Agriculture and make it partially a private sector and commercialize it so farmers can become shareholders. We had gone very far before I left the ministry. I believe it will be done very soon because access to capital, commercial, mechanization, key things to get where we want it to get.
Thank you very much for that input. So I suppose the key takeaway here is, of course, there's the issues that are intrinsic in the process and helping to mobilize the small scale farmer. And those are really rooted in the whole limited economic support that we have in the agricultural sector. Is the government doing anything at all to try to shift this and try to improve the contributions to the agricultural sector that we know
of? The government is trying. I left there a year ago, and before I came, there was Adeshina, the current president of the ADB. He started what they call the Growth Enhancement Scheme in partnership with states. By the time we came in, the states withdrew their support. So the cost of the subsidy got so high that I inherited a debt of 67 billion. Yeah. And my budget wasn't big enough to pay. So I had to ask the president for help because people had supplied fertilizers and other inputs. A very good scheme. The problem is sometimes there are policy inconsistencies and somersaults. You are going in one direction, the thing stops, somebody else then reverses it and starts something new. And there is no way of decreeing this into place. Although we're saying to the National Assembly now, maybe there can be a law that a good policy should not be changed by a successor unless and until such a successor can prove that changing the policy is in the interest of the country. That may be something that can help us out.
Right.
But otherwise, the federal government is not strong enough to implement policies at state and local government levels. State governments have to come on board.
Perfect. All right. Yes. So on this topic then of ensuring food security, I suppose you kind of touched on the different bottlenecks and the different ways that we're trying to improve the industry as a whole, from looking at policies that have been implemented from talking about what the struggles of the small scale farmer in terms of information and technology. And then we've talked to Nasir Yammama to see what he's trying to do to pull that together as a whole. So let's shift gears a little and let's talk about the insecurity within the agricultural sector. So I don't know if you've seen in the media these days, there's a lot of insecurity with farmer-herder clashes and cattle rustling that has been causing a lot of grief and controversy in our country. So my question is, I suppose we'll switch to the tech guy now, and then we'll go back to policy, or do we start with policy? I suppose policy sets the ground for everything. So let's start with policy. What is going on? Why are these clashes happening, and what policies are in place to try to settle things for us?
Who is speaking next?
Sorry, Chief Audu Ogbeh, you are speaking.
All right, okay, very quickly. We have challenges, really. Insecurity is a major issue now. I mean, you go to Katsina and 50, 60 people come on motorbikes, ride through a village, take food, kill people, and ride off.
Right.
I mean, you wonder, what on earth is it that some poor woman and her children and her husband in the village, why are you killing them? And these are the ones whose 1 ton, half a ton, add up to the huge volume that makes Nigeria claim to be, for instance, the biggest maize producer in Africa and the 10th in the world, or sorghum. They are the ones, it's the addition of their small holdings that makes the big volume. Now they're being harassed.
Right.
The army is stretched. The army is stretched beyond its capacity. Almost in 34 states, there's military presence. What's the size of your army? It's not big enough. The police are stretched. And now, trying to analyze the background to this confusion is something that's too much for us to discuss tonight. However, we're then dealing with cattle rustling, cattle and farmer and header clashes. Now, a day has to come when we must have to find a way to keep the cattle in one location and feed them well with water, give them medication, and stop the movement. We've made efforts to do so. Controversies have followed. People have read religion, they've read tribe, they've read regionalism, all sorts of suspicions have come in. Now, this problem is not peculiar to Nigeria, it has happened elsewhere.
Right.
Even in the United States. Years back, cattle used to roam around, right? From Colorado, walking up and down. There were clashes, people fought. So slowly then they began ranching. Right. Now today, we have serious problems trying to deal with this matter. The cattle don't have enough feed. We're not growing enough fodder for them. They don't have enough water. And as long as the dry season is near, the herdsmen begin to move to where they can find grass. In the process of moving, they walk into people's farms. And when I met with them in many places, in Adamawa, in Kano, in Niger State, I said, if we find you a place to settle, build schools for you and your children, would you settle? They said yes, but then they asked me a question.
Okay.
How do you protect us against rustlers? Because rustlers are also part of the problem they face. So it's something that at the level of the ACF, we're going to start discussing very seriously.
Absolutely.
We must find a solution.
Okay. So
the moving around has to stop. We have to feed the cows better. We have to do artificial insemination to crossbreed. There must be a better yield of milk. We're spending $1.6 billion a year importing milk. Now, yet we have close to 20 million cows in Nigeria. Of course, half of them are bulls. So the agricultural sector needs a lot of work. We haven't gone far, I must tell you this. Unfortunately, the way we react to suggestions, the suspicion about ethnic domination, about invasion, about religion is so strong. When I was minister, I wrote to every governor. We're thinking of ranches in your states. Are you interested? Only 16 of them replied.
Right.
The rest said they were not interested. And we wanted to work on the 16. And then, of course, all hell broke loose. And people suspected it was an attempt to lord Fulanis over the rest of the country, and so on and so forth. And government had to stop.
Right.
But we have to solve the problem.
Absolutely. So let me just jump in there and ask, Samuel, you've interfaced with a lot of farmers while trying to implement the innovations that you offer in terms of agriculture and production. And I know you yourself are mostly produce, but with your interface with these farmers, have they ever voiced the consideration for settling down? So in their opinions, is it better for them to embrace settling down in one place in ranches compared to moving around with their cattle?
Well, yes, like Chief Audu said, a lot of the farmers also, a lot of the herders also have their concerns about some of the implementation of the policies, like the ranching. In fact, as a matter of fact, on Friday, I had a discussion with one farmer very close to my farm. So we were talking about, he was telling me that he wanted to buy more cattle, but that the sizable number he has now enables him to move without any problems from the rustlers, because he's able to control them. They are not so many, he's able to move, and he doesn't have issues. But when he considers buying more, the issue will be delving a lot of the herders, a lot of farmers around. Even for us who are producers, on our farms are located in areas that are not very accessible in the hinterland. So we face those issues of insecurity as well. But it's just it's a big challenge, really. It's a big challenge, and it's something that I'm sure if some levels of controls are put in place, it will also boost agriculture, because a lot of people wanting to go into agriculture, the first fear they express is, okay, the farms are in the hinterlands. What if something happens to me when I'm on the farm? So it can be very discouraging for new farmers as well. So really, it's a challenge for us.
So talking about these challenges then and trying to mitigate against them, Nasir Yammama, what kind of technological advances or innovations are in place to try to reduce some of these tensions resulting?
I'll start with my usual rebuttal of people always thinking technology, is always confined to the information technologies. So yes, in terms of farmer herder crisis, we can track cattle, we can, put chips or do whatever magic we want to do. However, we keep forgetting, like Chief Audu said, that animal husbandry has a lot of science and technology in it, from artificial insemination to animal feed improvement, which can be done. And by the way, no country in the world has sustained livestock or dairy production by this, nomadic movement from one place to another. It never works. It doesn't work. Besides, the amount of nutrients that the cattle lose just moving from one place to another makes enough economic sense to place them in one place, And by the way, when we were the king of groundnut production in the world, most of that export that goes to countries like the United Kingdom went into animal feed. This is technology that has been available since the 40s. So we need to actually think of technology in terms of, localizing, and also in rudimentary terms. It doesn't have to be some high-tech, out-of-this-world thing. Mere just enclosing farms, doing ranches is one way of solving this problem to a greater extent, And other than that, in terms of security of farmers, like I've come across this firsthand, both when I'm trying to grow or help farmers that grow out in the field, and when I'm sitting in the comfort of my office and I get an alert. We deployed a solution with the German corporation back, I think in 2015 or 16 in Plateau. It was supposed to serve as a two-way communication platform for farmers to talk about, extension and finance and all of that. But it ended up becoming a security platform, because most of them would just use it to say we're being attacked, So technology can be used to track these guys, and there's absolutely no excuse. The government must protect the lives of farmers, must make sure that farmers are safe, because if you were to save anybody, it has to be the farmer first. So I don't think the government has done or is doing enough in terms of deploying its enormous resources and making sure that farmers' lives and properties are protected. There are avenues that can be employed, but like the other speaker said, this would take hours of talk if we were to go into details. But yeah, I think we should look at technology from a bird's eye perspective, not just restricting it to information technologies when we want to solve the problem.
Absolutely. So here, from a security perspective, I think it's something of a multifaceted issue where I think it takes multiple people and multiple types of resources to try to tackle this issue. So from a policy perspective, what policies can we put in place to try to protect our farmers and protect our herds? And then from a technology and research perspective, what kind of research and technologies can we really to improve and innovate our agricultural sector? I don't know if Chief Audu Ogbeh has anything to say on this, or...
I think I share the view of the last speaker. It's about we react in Nigeria with extreme emotion. In 2017, I organized a national conference on livestock development. It lasted 4 days in Abuja at the International Conference Center. And we came down with all these issues. First, like the last speaker said, a herdsman today walking around with 200 cows, half of them bulls, is actually wasting his time and energy. Absolutely. He doesn't know this. Because by the time a cow moves from Adamawa to Lagos, it would have lost almost half its weight. On the other hand, if the cow is in one location and is well fed, 10 kilograms of good fodder per day, and remember this, each of these cows, especially in this climate, needs a minimum of between 50 to 100 liters of water per day. Imagine when this cow is marching along and in a whole week, it hasn't had up to 2 gallons of water. Then the herdsman and his wife and little kids are marching along at the back. They too go through snake bites. They get into fights with farmers when their cattle eat their crops. It's a very tense matter, being given a lot of very negative interpretations. So it's something that we were going to slowly work on state by state. For those states that were willing to give the land, say, okay, like the last speaker said, when farmers harvest their maize and their sorghum and their groundnuts and their millet, the stalks are good feed for cattle and goats. There are machines that pulverize them. You can add a bit of molasses to make them tastier. If you added all these volumes and deliberately grown grass, you can actually keep the cows in one location all year round. Now, to stop the problem of rustlers, we began training a group of people called the Agro Rangers when I was in the ministry. The idea was for them to protect these ranches when they came into place. They'll be very well armed, they'll be on radio, they use technology to track down rustlers and make sure they don't harass the farmers. And I'll tell you one little story. I went to Niger State, to the Bobi Dam. Bobi Dam is 60,000 hectares. I mean, Bobi Ranch, with 9 dams. And when I got there, I sat down with the herdsmen and said to them, listen, if we create ranches here for you, will you stay in one place? The leader there, the Audu, said to me, yes, we will. But please protect us against rustlers. They had 3 primary schools. They are run by an American woman. The Audu then said to me, please give us a secondary school. We want our children to go to school and to go to university so they can come back and look after the cows and do it differently. But what touched me most, which made me almost cry, that he said to me, will you have light here? I said, yes, we're going to use cow dung to use and create biogas and generate electricity for the milking. You know what he said? He said, oh, then maybe in my old age, I'll have a fan in my room.
Oh, wow.
A fan. Now, when I left there, I sat in my car and I said, God, forgive us. Here is this man. His only wish is a fan. Of course, he will have a fridge and cold water. But he's asking, will I have a fan in my room?
Right.
Now, while they roam around in the bush, we, the rest of us, comfortable in the cities, don't really know how much trouble they go through. They don't sleep well. They don't drink good water. They get bitten by snakes, scorpions. They live there.
Right.
Their children don't go to school. Their wives give birth in the bush and die sometimes giving birth. They too have their own peculiar problems. So as a country, when are we going to be able to sit down with everybody and say, okay, let's do it this way and that? That has been very difficult.
Okay.
Far too difficult. But we must solve the problem.
Absolutely. So I suppose in opening these discussions, I think the point is for ourselves amongst the panelists and also engaging with the audience to try to think about these issues, discuss them, and then offline, even on our forum, discuss how we can improve these issues, right? So we can absolutely highlight all the different issues, but how do we come to solutions? I want to just, on these points that we've made, Samuel, just to wrap up so we can move on to our questions. Samuel, do you have anything to add to any of the points made today in terms of the security when it comes to agriculture?
Well, yes, the security issue, like I said earlier, and like every person has emphasized, is a very, very, very serious issue, and its impact on its negative impact on the development of agriculture cannot be overemphasized because of the obvious reasons that we've stated. So I know, like Chief Audu said, stretching the military is already far gone, and whatever the federal government can do in terms of improving agriculture, especially around areas where agricultural production takes place, will go a long way in developing it. So I think it's a one of very important topics that I think we'll talk about today.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And you, Nasir Yammama, do you have anything else to say on this topic?
Yeah, so I mean, I was looking at some of the comments, even though we're getting to that. Food insecurity and malnutrition is heightened greatly because of, you know, the insecurity that farmers suffer in terms of their lives and properties. Quite all right. Absolutely. And now with the pandemic at hand, it's only going to get worse. In fact, according to, I think it's ECOWAS, we currently have 17 million Africans who are food insecure and malnourished. And by August of this year, that number is going to get to 50 million. And when you do a kind of a simple poll of the entire sub-Saharan region of Africa, Nigeria's population stands out. So if you do a simple deduction, out of that 50 million, where do you think more than 50% of those people would come from? It's evidently Nigeria. And by the way, where is the, you know, foothold of agricultural productivity in Nigeria? And then, exactly, so yeah.
You know, it's really shocking when we hear about these kind of numbers, especially when you consider that Northern Nigeria is meant to have 70% arable land, right? We should not be facing all of these issues when it comes to lack of food, and then beyond that, then malnutrition, and looking at all these figures. It's really, really confusing as to where we are, why we are where we are today. So just to try to kind of wrap up before we move on to our question answer session, because I know there's a lot of people excited to ask you a lot of people excited to ask questions and learn from you guys. So if you have any questions, by the way, in our audience, please put your hand up so I can keep track and monitor you. So yes, just to wrap up then, there's huge issues then within the agricultural industry or the agricultural sector. A lot of which are stemming from the economic support or lack thereof. And then beyond that, then the insecurity issues that all contribute and conglomerate and amalgamate themselves into issues from health issues, looking at malnutrition. And now, especially when we're looking at the future now, right? Now it's all about the industry of knowledge. It's all about human capital. And really what we're doing by not supporting our industry of agriculture is suppressing our own children. Our children are growing up malnourished and not being able to really fully function to their optimal. So it's really a big issue that needs to be tackled. And here we are having discussions on these topics. So now that we've kind of wrapped up or asked our panelists, let's move on to the audience then with a lot of hands up. So before we move on to have the questions, I'd like to ask a few of the audience members to make any comments if they have any. So Marlon Murtala Aliu, I see you here in the audience. Would you like to make any comments on this topic? Let's see, you have the floor.
Well, thank you very much. I'm an aspiring, or rather, I want to be a farmer. So I'm glad at least that I participated. But I'll just comment on two things. One, the issue of the policy consolidation or the usual policy somersault. I think the problem actually is our polity. When people win election, and it's like they're starting a fresh mandate, and that's why the issue is. instead of political parties owning particular programs or projects or policies, it's the individual that contests the election that comes with a fresh policy. And I think that's why I think we still have to go back to the polity. We have to re-engineer our political parties to be able to tell us what they will do when they come to power or when they remain in power, so that at least certain things can be sustained. Now, the next thing is the Nasir Yammama issue about this market-driven value chain. For as long as the issue has not been given a commercial dimension, I think we will continue to experience this. One question I wanted to ask, especially Samuel, is that whether they have a network. I know there's Farmers Association, Farmers Nigerian, Real Farmers Group, and all that. But whether they have a network where they share information. Just yesterday, I was talking to somebody who said this central bank palliative to agriculture, that out of about 300 applications he saw, only less than 20 are from the north. So this is a kind of challenge. Now, even where there are opportunities for people to move, because of our subsistence nature and because of the quality of, or rather, the educational level of the farmers, we find that we don't take these opportunities. So I don't know whether the Samuels who are already in the field and the likes and the Yammamas will continue to increase the network to educate people on the opportunities on the ground and also try to make agriculture, like Additional said, an issue of economy, not subsistence. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So from our panelists then, who would like to take the question?
Samuel, I think.
Okay, all right. Yes, from what the last speaker said about groups and passing on information for farmers coming up, the policies, to be very honest, have been very, very positive in terms of access to finance, especially with the latest policy on with the Nigeria Microfinance Bank, where there is credits to farmers to up to about 10 million naira for small-scale farmers. It has really opened up the space for a lot of aspiring farmers to access funds. But the thing is, information is also very key, because sometimes you talk to somebody and the person has probably not even heard that there's a policy like that. And the policy is very flexible, that it makes it, I think it's collateral free, but then you have to have some level of documentation. And then the interest rate is less than 10%, I think 7% or so. So the terms are actually very, very friendly, and they are agricultural tailored. But the issue is access to information. And then the people who are in agriculture who should take advantage of these policies are probably not aware or don't have that basic qualification to apply for such facilities. So we'll come back to the issue of information again. So if there are avenues for information to be made available to the public, and then also education for the farmers to be able to put all their papers together, to be able to, so that they can apply and have access to this finance, it will go a long way, to really go a long way in agricultural development. And in our own little capacity and in our own little way, we try, but at least the ones we come in contact with, and then the informal groups we have, because I know agriculture is mainly not very formal in terms of its operations. So in the informal groups, we have the small cooperatives, we tell them, okay, there's this scheme here, this is what and what is entailed. And you can come as cooperatives or you can come as individuals if you have the capacity to be able to make available your papers. Then you stand a very good chance of accessing this finance.
Thank you very much. I hope that answered the question, Malam Murtala Ali. All right, so now we also have Tahir Jiga in the audience. I don't know if you have any comments to make on this topic.
Good evening all, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to make a few comments.
Thank you.
I would like to say that improving agricultural value chain in northern Nigeria obviously is necessary, but there are a lot of challenges. And many of these challenges are associated with governance. And in the sense that, for example, predominantly, livestock farming is nomadic, and general agricultural production is either small farmer activity or substantially at the subsistence level of farming. And I think that it is very, very important that the governance process addresses the issues, fundamental issues, really, if we want to improve agricultural production and also improve agricultural value chain in this kind of context. And some of these challenges, if I may quickly mention, I know that the issue of access to finance has been mentioned, the issue of interest rate, particularly related to that. But I would also like to say that there are also cumbersome procedures which work against small farmers. Of course, when you link the issue of these cumbersome procedures and the even lack of information that has been mentioned, you know, you can see how disadvantaged small farmers are in this context. But I think fundamentally, governance in this kind of situation that we have in northern Nigeria has to address the fundamental issues of transformation of agricultural production, you know. And I think the issue of land tenure is a very difficult and complex issue, but many governments are not even thinking about it and are skirting around the issue. And in general, people are reluctant to take tough decisions on some of these matters. So in the long run, it is very, very important that while we may not necessarily have an aggressive land reform policy that can take away land from small-scale holders, but we have to find ways and the means of expanding access to land, particularly for medium and large-scale producers. So ACF, if there is a way it can engage governors, you know, to provide this expansion. I understand that in Nigeria generally, and even in many of the northern states, there are still large tracts of land that have not been cultivated. So providing opportunities for this, I believe, can improve agricultural production while you still pay attention to small farmer agriculture, but you also need to expand because it's economies of scale. You know, whether in terms of increase in production or in terms of value chain. So I think there are fundamental issues to address, and obviously there is no time to go into details in this. But the other main issue that I just want to mention about governance. In Nigeria in general, there is a lack of a good national agricultural policy that is comprehensive and that is implementable. And obviously, Minister Audu Ogbeh has mentioned policy inconsistency and flip-flops from one minister or from one regime to another. But even at the state level, hardly has any state in the northern part of the country has a good policy that you can say this is an agricultural policy that can be implemented to transform agriculture in their areas. So we need to begin to push matters of governance and getting people really who can address these issues as they need to be addressed, rather than picking small programs and projects which are either inconsistent or unsustainable. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you very much for your comments there. So I don't know, Chief Audu Ogbeh, if you have any comments you want to make in response.
Yes, I'd like to thank the Prof. It's very, very true. This business of policies changing from, and the Ministry of Agri has had this unfortunate trend that the average turnover of ministers is 1 year, 8 months on the average. 1 or 2 ministers were there for long. The former minister, Bello, who was a banker, he was there quite long under IBB. But since then, it's been difficult because I was in Morocco last year. The minister there is in his 11th year in the ministry. 11 years. He's a businessman, but a farmer. So he has pushed Morocco's agriculture so high that I was talking with the minister and I said, listen, we produce date palm, dabino, in the north. One dabino tree, well grown, well looked after, by the 10th year will start yielding fruit. believe me, a family that has one good tree, well looked after, can earn between 800,000 and ₦1 million per annum at maturity, because our own yields here twice a year. Now, we said, okay, can you help us develop this? And we started working on a laboratory in Jigawa that does seed improvement. And then, of course, our tenure came to an end. Because I was saying, why can't each family have 10 trees in parts of the northern states? So we can make fruit juice, we can make jams and marmalades and so on. So policies don't stay. And that's a big problem. Now, maybe someday, like Ursula said earlier, the parties should know what is in their manifesto, and they should tell the minister coming in, you can't jump ship. You can't come and change it because it is going well. But the ultimate solution lies in the hands of farmer associations. Like the All Farmers Association of Nigeria should be able to go to a minister and say, hey, this policy that you are throwing aside is doing very well for us. We want to maintain it. Right. You dare not change things in France or Germany. No minister can wake up in France and change what is going on well for the farmers. They'll block all the roads with their tractors, throw tomatoes, no truck can pass. Oh yes, the Germans are like that. Yes. You don't try it in the US, you lose the election. But we are too passive here, and we just wait for whatever government does or doesn't do. Right. And like Professor Jega said, the states too, some just have no interest. Some states aren't saying a word about agri. Some states don't have one tractor per local government. They don't have a grader to open up a village road for the farmer to use his Okada and carry his crops. So we lock them away, they suffer, but they're the ones feeding us. So these are very serious issues. Maybe soon, right. Somewhere, maybe through the National Assembly, some policy that can be binding to some extent can come out. But otherwise, there is a long journey ahead of us in agri. Thank you. And food insecurity is not far away. Right. I'm sorry to say. So we have some great points there, such as what you pointed out, farmers associations there. I suppose, Nasir Yammama, you yourself are a farmer. You consider yourself a farmer. Do you know any of the moves made by farmers associations to try to help move things forward?
Well, for one, I have, been kind of advocating for stronger farmer associations and their activities from farmer groups. And I don't think we have robust and standard farmer associations in Nigeria. The All Farmers Association of Nigeria has some, historic or nostalgic value for most people in it. The Rice Farmers Association, which is supposed to be under it, and hundreds of other commodities that have association. I think they need a lot of capacity building in terms of what they could achieve as an association. Which they currently either don't know, or the politics of the nation has, deteriorated their capacity to act on behalf of the farmer. And it's not only them, at the receiving end or at the, the fault end of things. I believe our policymakers also, have their own issues, and our politics as a people has not been one that supports that kind of action-led advocacy from groups that are other than the political establishment. Professor Tahir has made mentions of so many things that have been burning, for me as an innovator and as a farmer. A simple, land reform or land, view towards land can change so much for agriculture and for farmers. I know a friend of mine who has an agri-tech company that did so much work with especially rice farmers in Kano, to the point that they mapped and got accurate and complete geographical information of these farms and linked it in a way that state governments with just a click could issue CFOs for farmers, which will change the way they access so many things. But that unfortunately was never done. Now, to blame the governor or the lack of a good policy, I think is too simplistic a view. This is a bigger problem than we all think, because for a fact, the agricultural transformation agenda and the agricultural promotion policy, that's the last two policy documents of agriculture of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that I know are fantastic documents. If you look at them, you'd see that a lot has been done to make sure that evidence-based policy is pushed forward. However, implementation is poor at best. And even though the policies are good, they could certainly be better. And I think we need the voices of not only the professionals in this group, the academics in this groups, and the farmers in the group to come together and to galvanize and push for the government to do the right thing. Whether we like it or not, it is the responsibility of the government. The government is not doing anybody a favor by doing its jobs. We need to educate the people to understand that, we actually need, I don't know if I'm going to be inciting anyone to say we need a farmer-led revolution for us to escape, the predicaments that are imminent, especially in terms of food insecurity and malnutrition.
Absolutely. So those are some great points. And I suppose we have a few more people here in our audience that will have pressing questions that they want to ask. We have Kaib, I'm so sorry if I don't say this right. Kabiyese Jacob Eason in the audience who would like to make a comment. So you have the floor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Fatima. It's my pleasure to make a few observations here. The first thing I would like to mention is to actually state that as a nation, we're already disadvantaged by virtue of our geographic location. There are lots of empirical.
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, there are lots of empirical studies that have shown that our geographical location is not so suited for large-scale agriculture. And having listened to everything we've said thus far, I've come to the conclusion that we're looking at this from bottom-up solutions, whereas we should actually be looking at solutions that are broad-based. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yep.
Solutions that are broad-based. Can you hear me? Please confirm.
Yes.
Thank you.
Solutions that are broad-based. And the first thing I would like to say we should pay attention to is infrastructure. If we're able to implement a system-wide development of relevant infrastructure, we will be able to leapfrog the challenges that we have currently. And the basic idea behind this is simply that what makes a country self-sufficient is the ability to warehouse its earnings, isn't it? Warehouse the volatility of its money within its system. And since agriculture is the livelihood and the lifeblood of any nation, it's important that we implement policies that keeps our money within our system. And this is where infrastructure plays the greatest role. Any small-time farmer anywhere planting or producing anything that cannot be taken 100%, it's really going to be a challenge, isn't it? Because then you have wastage. I believe that infrastructure would also lead to extrapolation of the opportunities that we can get from agriculture. And we have to also realize that agriculture is a business, it's not a social service. One of the things that I would also mention briefly is that we should look towards creating forward contracts to ensure that farmers are inclined to producing because they know that whatever they have produced will be taken from them, which locks in demand. I think that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your input there. Thank you very much for being on here. So I suppose, Samuel, you have experience on the front end, being a producer yourself. How do you try to get around the issues of wastage from your perspective? And what do you think, how have you been able to draw contracts to try to resolve these kind of issues?
The issues of like the last, sorry, I want to make a point on one of the issues the last caller spoke about, the issue of infrastructure. Okay. Infrastructure is so much of a problem that it's almost like, hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Infrastructure is so much, okay, infrastructure is so much of a problem that for farms, you make your road, you provide your electricity, you provide your security, you're doing almost everything that has not even started anything to do with your production yet. You know, so that infrastructure is what it plays a very, very important role in facilitating how your production goes. Then in the issues of storage, for me, I do fresh produce. So infrastructure also plays a role in making my fresh produce get to my clients on time, because we try to harvest on the same days that we make the supplies. And that takes away the issues of storage. And it's a deliberate thing because of the challenges of storage, because we produce perishables. You know, so sometimes you just have to walk around some of the challenges you have and trying to work smart so that you avoid some of the issues or challenges that are along the value chain of your production and distribution as well as your market. So for me, that's how I've dealt with the issue of storage, by avoiding the storage and trying to make my deliveries same day. And that has to do with overcoming the challenges of infrastructure that are faced in the course of that. So that's that about infrastructure and storage for me.
Thank you very much for your input. I suppose the key thing is, once you've produced, then how do you get to market safely? And that's where we need to focus on building the infrastructure then to get to our customers. So we have, sorry, I'm so sorry with the names, Femi, I won't go there. So Femi, if you have any comments to make, please say them now.
Good evening, everybody, and thanks for giving me the platform.
Thank you.
For me, I think the issues have been, fully dealt with. From my end, I would like to say that all the stakeholders on this platform are aware of the problems. If we keep talking about the problems, I would say we're experts, in identifying and understanding the problems. But our key challenge has been how to, move forward, how to address these challenges. So I would like to encourage the platform, the group, to start thinking of, the way forward on how we can begin to, put some of these solutions, how we can articulate these solutions and then put them and translate them into action. For instance, some of the problems we've talked about here, seed varieties, infrastructures, these are age-long challenges. We met them. Our parents once talked like this. I hope our children will not also, have a section like this in the future, and then they will keep repeating, these challenges. So I think what is ahead of us, the task ahead of us is, how do we surmount these challenges? We have to be proactive. We've used to be very reactive in policy making. There have been a lot of assumptions and all of that. So going forward, how do we address some of these, challenges headlong?
Right.
I would also like to add that the issue of post-harvest losses is something that is also affecting smallholder farmers' livelihood. Not all agricultural production activities translate into productivity for smallholder farmers. And we've actually identified some of the challenges there. For me, it is even more economical to address post-harvest losses, because as you address post-harvest losses, there's enough food for people to eat. There's enough raw materials for people to, process. Also, that we are creating, by generating job opportunities, because once materials are there for the companies, of course, they will definitely, recruit people to work for them. And so we need to start thinking of how do we make, agricultural very attractive for not just for the smallholder farmers, but also for even the teeming, growing, youth population in Nigeria. Right. Because a majority of the Nigerian youth, when they look at the conventional smallholder farmer, they become so discouraged when it comes to agriculture. If you also look at the issue of data, if you go to all the public sector, agricultural public sector, you discover that data is non-existent. we do not have data. So sometimes it's even very difficult for you to, identify the problems. It's very difficult for you to think about, the entry point in addressing some of our challenges. So how do we devise, or how do we build a systematic data collection process that, help us inform, solutions in dealing with some of our problems? For instance, if you look at what is happening in the cashew sector now, most of our trees are, the trees in the cashew sector most of the farmers in the cashew sector are aging. And that is just to tell you that most of the trees we have in Nigeria are aging. And they're almost getting to the end of their, their production cycle. Now, if you also, that is a problem. Now, in cashew, we cannot estimate our production potential as a country. You see commonly quoted figures by FAO, and just for one single subject, you find 100 sources of information. These are critical problems that affect us, and that also deny our our production potentials at a global scale. So we need to also be looking at how do we address the issues of data collection. And lastly, from my end, we have a lot of companies are doing a lot of things in Nigeria, but are they actually repatriating their proceeds back to the country, to expand businesses? So we need to also be looking at export stimulation incentives. There are a lot of schemes that have been abandoned. You have the drawback duty scheme, you have the manufacturing bond schemes, you have the export expansion grant scheme. What is happening to all these schemes? There are a lot of backlog. So we just need to look at all of these things and find a way to make things happen. Thank you
very much for that. So there were a lot of points there made, and I suppose one of the ones that I picked up is the data collection and sharing and distribution of data and making it available for the people. I don't know if you have any comments on that, Nasir Yammama.
Definitely. So I mean, I've listened intently to Femi, and I've heard some great things and some contradicting things, because on one hand, you're saying we shouldn't talk about the problem and we should jump right into the solution. But in your analysis, you've clearly told us that the reason why we haven't succeeded in having any solutions is because we're not quite looking at the problem. We're having a reproductive way of solving problems, in that we just bring out policies and we just bring out things that are not evidence-based. And like Professor Tahir said, policy making needs to be evidence-based. It needs to build a holistic plan that integrates accountability into systems for people to actually be responsible for implementing whatever great policy that we have. And secondly, you mentioned about data and policy and infrastructure. And the funny thing is, these things are more interrelated than we like to admit. Because come to think of it, even with the best road, say for Samuel to bring his fresh produce to, let's say, a supermarket in Abuja, what happens if I, as a government, say, okay, Samuel needs storage, he needs a good road, and I put in millions of naira to give him that good road and that storage? But what if the supermarket doesn't want the produce that Samuel has? See, that's a bigger problem. Market-driven approach, like we've said before, it needs to be there first. If the market is established, trust me, the infrastructure would follow. However, you don't expect me as a market to invest or to push any institution to invest in making available an infrastructure if that infrastructure is storing or transporting or adding any value to something that I don't need. So first of all, we need to make sure there's that clarity in terms of the producer and the market, and then the infrastructure would follow. And you're right, data is not available, non-existent in most of the cases, and where it does exist, it's not accurate, and a lot of redundancies. We definitely need to do better, and I absolutely believe that it begins with correctly and accurately identifying the problem, which we're doing. I don't think it's a problem talking about the problem. It begins there, but definitely we need to do more. And it goes same with what Jacob said. I believe most of what you've said are similar. we definitely need to carry the conversation forward. There's certainly not enough time to talk about all of the things, but yeah.
Thank you very much. Chief Ogbeh, do you have any more input on that?
Just rounding up what they've all said, they've made all the points, but this is to show us clearly that this is a very complex sector. There are so many issues to be dealt with. We can't wait until they're all sorted out before we move ahead.
Right.
Because we have to eat. The stomach can't wait. Number two, the era of oil and gas is gone. No matter what we wish, we have to export food after feeding ourselves. Some of the food we want to export, we don't necessarily consume here. Somebody mentioned cashews. I'm a cashew farmer. I've been growing cashews since 1986. Some of the trees are old, but the policy we have today, or the encouragement, is that we should process our cashew here instead of sending raw cashew to Vietnam. I have been at the factory of the largest cashew processor in the world in Vietnam, right? He makes so much money from Nigerian and African cashew that he wonders why we're not processing here.
Right.
But then to process, you need the dollars to buy the machinery. Then you need to borrow at an interest rate. Then you have to have your power supply system on at the site. And the usual problems that confront every manufacturer in Nigeria. Now, we are down in cocoa, like I said, but there is still room for people to invest in these things. And like many of you who are younger, the request I want to make tonight is this. Maybe you can begin to invent your own future. How many of you are interested in starting a plantation, for instance, of, say, mangoes, selected mangoes for export or for juicing in future? How many of you would like to do coffee? People don't realize that coffee grows well here. Adamawa, Taraba, Plateau, all the way to the south, southwest, southeast. The Robusta is a very good blend of the Arabica and the Robusta. It's very expensive in the world market. Now, cocoa trees are also very old now. How many of you are thinking of making ethanol from cassava? How many of you are thinking of making oil, say from lemongrass or from eucalyptus? Or how many of you are thinking of growing zobo, hibiscus, to export? Last year, no, 2 years ago, we exported hibiscus to Mexico, worth $35 million. We have to start earning foreign exchange as well, because oil and gas is gone. It may hover around for a while, but it will never be what it was in the, about 20, 30 years ago. How many of you want to keep goats? There's a demand for goats in the Middle East, 120,000 goats per week. So some of these things may not take too much energy. They may not require too much land. You can secure them. Now begin to make some money and then expand your operations. Right. The vagaries of the market are there.
Right.
There are those who say don't close your borders because you should compete. How can you compete? The farmer in Thailand is borrowing money at 3%. The one in India is borrowing at 3.5%. The one in Singapore is borrowing at 2%. And the banker here tells you to pay 30%. Plus your generator and your water and your security. How do you cope in competition?
There's a lot.
So these are the issues.
Like you.
So I thank you all for coming, but keep this in mind. Don't lose hope. Let's keep trying, because we have to drive this country forward in spite of the obstacles.
Thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much.
There is, like you've mentioned, a lot of issues and obstacles facing our local farmers who are trying to get to being able to even compete in this world. First of all, let's even feed ourselves, and then how do we even compete, right? So I don't know, Samuel, if you have any comments to make on that point from your experience producing food. And
a lot of us, like for me, I'm in agriculture because of the potential of the business, because of what I think that the future has for agriculture, and it's a sector that will only continue to grow, and its importance in terms of provision of food security cannot be overemphasized. So the challenges that come with the terrain are the issues that affect the level of success of the agricultural production. So infrastructure, insecurity, access to finance, information, all the issues that we've spoken about today are not new. And I think those are the issues that when we tackle one after the other, will continue, will lead to the development of the agricultural sector as it should be in Nigeria and in the North going forward.
Thank you very much. So now we have a few questions and a few people that have been patiently waiting with their hands up. So Yusuf Tukur, you've had your hand up, so you have the floor for your question.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me, please?
Yes, you can.
My question particularly goes to the chairman of the ACF, although I've managed to type some of the questions. If you've read through, you could have seen some. But I think the area he has mentioned is, the area I think the ACF needs to actually focus on. That's especially promoting export for our local farmers. Our local farmers are not informed. They lack the knowledge, they lack the connection, they lack the exposure to know how much the worth of their produce are.
Right.
Now I've joined from the UK. I go to Tesco, I go to Asda, Sainsbury's, etc. I just see, fresh fruits, vegetables, etc. just in the raw form directly from the farm. Just packaged and labeled, made in Egypt, made in Zimbabwe, Senegal, etc. So those are produce that require zero processing, just directly from the farm. They get washed and sent straight to, exported straight outside the country. And believe you me, sometimes we just buy it painfully because we see it's something that we can get even free of charge in Nigeria. But here you have to pay some £4, £5, etc. Something you can get free of charge. Yeah, so you can see if no processing is involved, just the production cost and then the transportation, which is the export. I think if farmers can be, put together, and it's not something that we have to leave, or the ACF rather has to leave in the hands of the government. No, ACF as a recognized pressure group can put the farmers together. We have lots of people all over the world. They can make that arrangement, get in touch with those, industries or say supermarkets, and at least, organic produce can be sent to them directly instead of them just having to be consuming the, the genetically modified. I think that area alone, if it's looked into and the ACF tries to do the right thing, then little efforts can be made, and then a fortune can be made out of it, and the poverty level in the north can be substantially, alleviated.
So was yours more of a comment than a question then?
Sorry? Comment rather.
Comment?
Yeah, so to say. Yeah.
So
I will have just like to hear what the ACF chairman is doing, if they've got any plans in that direction, or exactly, do they have, for our local farmers in terms of.
So we do try to keep the questions to 2 minutes max to ensure that everyone gets a chance to ask the questions. We will get to you, Chief Audu Ogbeh, to ask, to get your opinion on what he's just stated. So before we move forward, then we have Shehu Malumfashi with us. So it would be really interesting to hear what you have to say on the topics we've been discussing today. So you have the floor. Sorry, Shehu Malumfashi, we've unmuted you. I don't know if you can hear us. All right, so.
The person's phone is hooked or something like that. I think it's on.
Oh, he's on now. Maybe it's just some tech issues. All right. Okay, so we'll move to our next person while we wait for Shehu Malumfashi to deal with the tech issues. So we have Mustafa Manga. You have the floor now. So just state exactly who your question is directed to and do your points. Unfortunately, we can't hear you. Hello? Mustafa Manga? All right. So let's move to Shegun.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
We can hear you. Yes.
Hello, I'm Mustafa Manga. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Mustafa Manga.
Please, I'm actually a PhD student here in Newcastle, University, United Kingdom. My question is directed to the former Minister of Agriculture, Chief Audu Ogbeh.
Okay.
Chief Audu Ogbeh, let me start by commenting on some of the things that, maybe let me just single out one of the things that you were able to draft as a minister in the first administration of President Buhari. I think you came up with something called National Livestock Transformation Plan. And in some mainstream media in Nigeria, they call it Ruga settlement. And I think for me, coming from the northern part of the country, the term Ruga settlement really, for me, exposes some of the fault lines that we have in the country generally. And I remember the livestock transformation plan is built on 6 key pillars. I remember some of them like economic investment, conflict resolution, law and order, something, information, education, strategic communication, and cross-cutting issues, if I could remember exactly. I think my question is, there is this part of your statement that is really contradicting or confusing to me, which I would like a clarification. You made mention of saying the federal government don't farm, it is the state that does the farming. And when you go to the state asking for the land to do Ruga settlement, confusion and chaos and negativity comes into it. I would like to ask you as a Minister of Education, I think we will not exhaust so many of our energy and resources talking about this stuff that we already know. Okay. My point is, can we be able to have some set, like I know there's this subsidiary argument that can't we have this set of policies at the state level that can be implemented by state governors without necessarily having federal government imposing these kind of things that it seems not to be working for us? Can we be able to have this kind of localized or domesticating these policies at the levels that state government can be able to achieve this thing? I don't know whether you get my point or my question, rather.
So just to restate, you're saying in terms of the policies like Ruga, like the Ruga settlement and things like that, where
yes,
focus on state levels as opposed to federal.
Yes.
So that's your question, and I suppose Chief Audu Ogbeh is in and out of this conversation, so we'll move on to the
next. Okay.
So we'll get to that. So we'll get to him then when he's on. So
okay, thank you.
Your question. So now we'll move to Shegun Ajibola. You have the floor.
Hello, good evening, everybody. It's quite interesting hearing from everybody, your opinions, suggestions, questions, and all the wonderful speakers we have on the platform. Actually, everybody has said everything, but I just have few questions. And number one, oh, by the way, I'm connecting from Germany.
Thank you.
So I have a question for Nasir Yammama, tech guy. So I think he's into something about data collections and the likes. I want to ask what kind of data are you collecting, and what solution are you using your data to provide within the region? Also, what's second question to also him is that what's the climate, like the solution in terms of data-driven solution for agri-tech or digital solutions? Do you think the Nigerian farmers or the smallholder farmers or even the Nigerian government is really doing something? Are they doing something, or are they even accepting this digital solutions? Do you think it's been accepted? And again, the last question to the former minister, Audu Ogbeh, what policies is the federal government or the government in general initiating to support digital solution to agricultural sector? I'm asked, and then back to Nasir, is how do you connect to your data? Because I run a digital agri-tech the digital solution here in Germany, and sometimes we just need raw data so that we could develop solutions around this data, so that we could also help or provide farm intelligence for farmers. Yeah. So how do we connect to your data? How do we work with you? And the rest questions are asked.
Okay, thank you very much for your question. So if Audu Ogbeh, if you're with us, please let me know because
Yes, I'm back. I lost you for a while.
Yes, you're in and out. So I suppose we had a few questions there directed at you. One was about what kind of steps are in place to promote exports. I think you heard that one, right? For our local farmers. And then the second was about which is the Ruga settlements. Then how are the policies then being focused at a state level as opposed to federal level? So I suppose those were the key questions that were directed to you.
Well, in the area of export, there is the Export Promotion Council, which is encouraging exports, but we are still hoping that the Ministry of Trade and Investment and the Export Promotion Council will have to get together with producers and establish a common code. First of all, there is a problem of the quality of Nigerian produce going abroad. Quite often, chemicals are found in some of our produce which are not acceptable overseas. Number two, packaging is another issue. You cannot use polypropylene bags to export anything. You must use jute bags. We had 2 jute bag factories in Nigeria in the 60s. One was in Badagry and one in Jos. Both of them closed down when petrochemicals came in and we started making polypropylene bags. We were trying to start 3 companies in Nigeria to produce jute bags, which is from a local vegetable. But none of them has taken off yet. So you can't package your grains here unless you go to Ivory Coast or India and buy jute bags and bring. But we can grow jute and kanaf in Nigeria.
Okay.
So we have to work at it because whatever you ship out must meet international standards. But the issue of chemical pollution is a big challenge which is facing all of us.
Right.
People they use sniper to preserve beans and so on. But all you need is a small piece of pepper in the bag of beans, and no weevil can survive. But farmers don't know this. So these are there. Number 2, I think that it is still just dawning on Nigerians that agriculture is the big thing, and solid minerals. We don't have much else to export. But even though we're all recognizing that oil and gas is gone or going, I think we need to sit down at a more serious level and decide exactly what we want to do and look for markets. I got a call from China not long ago. They want white sorghum. They want white sorghum. They want sesame seed in Japan, in different parts of the world. They want gum arabic in the US, Coca-Cola and others. Right. They want, yes, they need a lot of stuff from here. But we are not yet prepared, both in quality and quantity, to hit the world market.
All right.
We're not.
So clearly there is demand there. It's just about getting our quality of our products to the level which
Precisely.
Thank you very much for that. So, and I suppose another question that came through was about the data collection and using that data then to actually implement change and solutions. Nasir Yammama, do you have any comments to make on this?
Thanks for the question, Mr. Shegun. To start with your last question regarding plugging into our database, I mean, the reason why most digital companies, especially data-driven companies in Nigeria, are not so profitable is because the sort of legacy infrastructure for data collection does not exist. The historical or data points to reach back for are non-existent or in shambles. So you're having to kind of provide your solution as well as dig for the data. Now, advances in digital technologies and analytics have gone quite far in the world. It costs less to store data, and therefore it presents an opportunity for us to deploy solutions. Both predictive data science and prescriptive data science are available for most of the agricultural industries in the world, apart from us, not just Nigeria, but third world countries and developing nations globally. However, I think if we invest in this data collection and optimization, it will lead to something. We're not quite there yet, that's the honest truth. And a lot of companies like us are struggling to see that, this data culture is inculcated into our daily lives, ranging from the smallholder farmer all the way to the policy maker. Use data for decision making. And only then can we really see the true potential of data-driven solutions.
Thank you very much for that, Nasir Yammama. So we have a few more questions lined up. So we'll take 3 questions at a time. Don't forget to say exactly who your question is directed at, so that we can get through this. The first person I'd like to open the door to is Bello Aliyu. So you have a question? Bello Ali, you have the floor.
Yeah, we had.
Oh.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Alaikum assalam. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you for giving me this permission to participate in this platform. Actually, I want to talk on one of the problems facing the farmers in this country, more especially the financial inclusion. Most of the farmers, they found it difficult to get access to credit facility because they lack basic financial knowledge. So what I want government to do on this issue, even though they are trying, let them put more effort to educate these local farmers on financial literacy. There are some basic financial literacy, like this using of ATM cards, using of POS, and transfer via mobile banking. Because when a product is rolled out to farmers, what actually happened? Some representatives, some of them are not farmers, because they used to take this advantage of what they will get. They will mobilize farmers by saying that they will give them assistance to get credit from maybe banks. And
thank you.
At the end, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. So your question to our speaker is?
Pardon?
So we're just trying to get to the question so we can.
Okay. My question to the former minister or to the room: what effort is government doing to educate these farmers on financial literacy? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that question. And then next we'll have Shamsuddin Yammama. You've been patiently waiting. So I have 2 minutes to answer your question quickly, just in consideration for time.
Okay, thank you very much. I commend the presenters. I thank you for the opportunity. I remember the gentleman from Newcastle raised a point while Chief Audu Ogbeh was not in. He asked why the states are interested, why the federal government is interested in coming down to the states to enforce the Ruga thing. Maybe Chief might want to respond to that when he comes to answer. He omitted that. And I will observe that in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, agriculture is in the concurrent legislative list. That means both the federal government and the state governments have a role to play in agriculture. Then my own question is, Chief Audu Ogbeh have been talking about financial inclusion in terms of accessibility to credit and the high interest rate. I will want to know what happened to the Nigerian Agricultural Cooperative Bank, because the tendency and policy regime in Nigeria is that if the federal government is interested in a particular sector, it usually provides a whole bank for it. For instance, we have the Federal Mortgage Bank, we have the Bank of Industry. I believe for us to have a full-fledged access to finance in the agricultural sector, we need a bank with low interest rate like the Nigerian Agricultural Cooperative Bank. Okay. Then on the issue of tomatoes, perishables, in the northern part of the country, for instance, we have the tomato belt. We know the reality. The reality is that in most cases, we see trucks coming to buy the tomatoes, taking them down to the southern part of the country where they make the tomato paste and they bring it back to us to buy as the local tomato. So I will want to know what the federal government did, particularly during the time that Chief Ogbeh was minister, towards ensuring that we have little cottage industries that do tomato paste. The same thing happens to mangoes. If it's the season, we don't really get to do that. We have a lot of wastages. Then lastly, I'm still within my 2 minutes, Fatima. I'm timing myself actually. Watch your time, I'm within. So lastly, maybe the northern government really need to. Hello? Hello?
Hi, yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Lastly, to Chief Audu Ogbeh as well, I will want to know what policies he really promulgated or he introduced when he was minister, particularly on the issue of irrigation, because we have the river basins, the Sokoto, Hadeja, Jama'ari, and all. Most at times, northerners usually go for what is called Chirani. Chirani, as soon as the rainy season is over, our people always wait for the rains. And they usually go down south to look for work. If the river basins were really up and doing, if the irrigation scheme had really been encouraged, most of our people will be engaged, and we really need to look into that. Thank you for your attention.
Your question, and then lastly, we'll go to our last question for the day, which is from Idrissa Adam.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I'm joining from Turkey, and I'm from Yobe State, the northeastern part of Nigeria. Actually, I had a lot of discussion, especially from the former minister, Chief Audu, and he actually touched a very good point where most of our farmers, and actually I happen to be the one, and the family I was brought up from. And also one of the things that Shamsuddin just said now, and also another thing that somebody mentioned, I forgot the name, but actually our farmers need a lot of knowledge about how to do the farming itself, because we are far behind on modern farming. Because secondly, our farmers need to be educated on how to take their products to market. Because one thing I noticed with our farming actually is that you see most of our farming happens during rainy season, and after the rainy season, everything stopped. Right. And all the products they produce during that rainy season, we don't know how to preserve them and push them to the market required. So what we only do is we push them to our local market, and most of the farmers do. This person did this on a lot of people, and you see many products in the market, and or the farmers doesn't get the value of what they spent in the farming, because there's too much of those products in the market. The price of that, the market fell down. So that discourages the farmers a lot, because someone will spend a lot of effort.
All right, so
someone will spend a lot, yes. Someone will spend a lot of effort, but because of he doesn't have the market to sell those products. I think what effort is the government? What efforts does the government will do to help the farmers to take their products into the market and get the value of what they have spend on, I think.
All right, so thank you very much for that question. So that wraps up our question session. So we'll get to the answers to the key questions that were asked. So there's a lot of questions and information asked there. So one of the key questions was, what support is the government providing in terms of financial literacy for our farmers? And beyond that, I suppose it's the same kind of question in terms of informing them about modern farming and things of that nature. So I'll go to Chief Audu Ogbeh, who these questions were primarily asked towards. So do you have any comments on these? All right, Chief Audu Ogbeh. I don't know if we've lost you again.
Well, before Chief comes in,
hello, can you hear me?
I have to run.
Back. Okay, so before you have to run, Nasir Yammama, thank you very much for joining us today. So would you like to make any statements or closing statements before you?
Hello? Hello?
I think Chief should go on and speak. Go on, sir. Yes, sir.
Hello, Chief Audu Ogbeh, we can hear you. Hello? All right. I think you're muted.
Audu is muted. You have to unmute him.
I'm muted. Hello? Just wait for him there.
Hello?
We can hear you. You're back.
Hello?
We can hear you.
We can hear you,
I'm
sir.
sorry.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, sir.
Sorry. Audu Ogbeh, we can hear you.
We can hear you, sir.
Hello? Yeah?
Sir.
We can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello?
Hello, we can hear you, Chief Audu Ogbeh.
Oh, okay, very good now. First, when we came in, we put in a policy called the Agriculture Promotion Policy, otherwise known as the Green Alternative. And in that document, for whoever may have looked at it, we included virtually everything that will be discussing this evening. Programs to follow. At the terminal end of the value chain, the Ministry of Agriculture does not build factories. We cannot. We can support farmers and cooperative groups to set up industries and run them. But even that is not particularly easy. So what we ask the CBN for help and begin to use the Bank of Industry to support us in our program, in particular with rice. The giant rice mills you see in Nigeria today, 42 of them, had a backing of the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Trade and Investment. That was the policy we used to go by indirect means to support industrialization without becoming involved in setting up industries and managing them, because government is inefficient, too inefficient to run a factory. Number two, somebody raised the question of Ruga. By the way, I don't know if all of you know what Ruga means. People thought in their anger by the British. It means rural grazing areas, Ruga. But it fitted very well and the Fulanis liked the word, so they took it up. What we wanted to do was create areas where cattle were raised or are raised. They are provided their fodder, their water, they are given all the vet attention they need, and people who want to buy cows can go there and take them. Then we'll have centers for artificial insemination for improving the breed of cattle, and also give a livelihood to the headsmen, and their children can go to school. They can have hospitals and have all the schools and all the facilities necessary so that they can begin to live a more normal life. Like the man who told me he hoped one day he'll have a fan in his room.
Right.
That was our policy. Then the BOA, the Bank of Agric, by the time we came in, the bank was almost completely bankrupt. Wow. It had no money. People had taken loans and didn't pay back. So we decided to reform the bank and commercialize it and encourage farmers to become shareholders, so the bank will be semi-owned by government and by the private sector. That program is still going on at the Bureau of Private Enterprise. I hope it will be completed soon. I didn't round it up before I left because government procedures are they're not always easy to hasten, but I think it will come on board very soon. Then farmers will own 40% of the shares of that bank. And farmers can decide which way they want the bank to go on policies and lending. Now, somebody asked about tomato being bought in the north at cheap prices and taken to the south. The problem is that setting up a tomato paste plant is not cheap. It is food-grade stainless steel. It is costly. And it has to be large for it to be profitable. In the north today, there are two big ones, one by Dantata in Kano, and one big one by some Spanish people going on in Kebbi. There are not too many tomato paste factories in the country today, but they are coming on. They are high capital investments, some 400 million naira, some more, because tomato is so soft. As you drive in, you offload, they wash, they crush. In 1 hour, they can consume 20, 30 tons of tomato, a trailer load in an hour. So what the farmers claim to be producing is sometimes not enough. But sometimes our breed of tomato is also a problem. The skin is too light, there's too much water in it, so the man making paste does not make profit. So we're reintroducing a new variety of tomato with more flesh than water. These are the technicalities in tomato processing, which is why sometimes there's a glut and sometimes there's scarcity. Now, juicing. There are many juicing plants here and there, very small ones, but they're not big enough to take on the quantum of fruits that Nigerians have. A few have been set up, they've gone bankrupt. Sometimes management in Nigeria is a problem. I have one in my state of Benue. It has never worked. There used to be some in Gombe, a tomato juice and I think it was, I can't remember the full name now. They went for a while and gave up because a government will come and say, do tomatoes. Another government comes and says, let's import.
Right.
And once the imported ones land cheaper than the local ones, the local one is going to die. Finally, the river basins. The river basins are not under the Ministry of Agri. They are under the Ministry of Water Resources. But believe me, many of them were done during the Shagari regime in 1982 when I was minister. Till today, many have no irrigation channels. One regime after another has not been able to do it. So irrigation is still very, very poor. And it's going to require quite some investment.
Perfect.
I'll stop there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Audu Ogbeh. So clearly there's a lot of opportunities there, but there's not been enough of the support or mobilization to actually get it to be sustainable and long term. So this has been a very informative discussion that we've had. And so just to wrap up then, as we kind of close, I know we're kind of trying to be aware of time. Any closing remark from our speakers? So we'll start from Nasir Yammama and we'll work our way down along to get our closing remarks. So Nasir Yammama, do you have any closing remarks?
Thanks very much. I think I'm very delighted to have joined the incredible speakers, to also have interacted with all of you. Most of the things we've said are iterative in nature, as in there was a lot of repetition, market-driven agriculture, infrastructure, policy needs to be clear. I mean, all of these just point to the fact that agriculture is a team sport. It's a value chain thing. It's a stakeholder thing. No one sector can do it alone. A lot of people say, let's forget the government, make it private sector driven. I mean, that can hardly work. We need institutions. We need systemic delivery of services and so many things that it's only the government that can effect. On the other hand, the government alone cannot do it, especially in agriculture. So as you can see, it's a multi-stakeholder thing, and we all need to come together to achieve it, from our innovators to our policymakers, and especially to our farmers, who I think we need to value more. We need to feel feel more important, and we actually need to make them more valuable as country people, as we do our doctors and engineers and all the others. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much for your time. And then Samuel, do you have any closing remarks?
Okay, yeah, I'd just like to emphasize that been a very, very engaging discussion. Issues have been raised, and some aspects of the discussions need to be taken further. We need to also look at the development of our textile industry in the north, cotton production, which leads to the viability of textile industries. The value chain is enormous. There's so much that can be done to reduce poverty in the north. Then issues of extension workers that used to be like Chief Audu earlier mentioned, extension workers, to take the technology to the rural farmers and the know-how about the modern agricultural practices, and then access to finance, access to information. These are all the issues we've spoken about, and when deliberate steps are taken to make these things available and information available to the farmers, I think the potential for agriculture is just beginning. There's so much more we can achieve.
Thank you very much for your input, Sam. And thank you. And then Chief Audu Ogbeh, do you have any closing remarks for us?
Yes, first let me tell you how proud I am to be talking to you, all of you, interacting with you tonight. Professor Jega, Murutala Aliu, all of us. What we are doing now, quite frankly, and I'll tell you this from my heart, this is far more important than all the political campaigns and the politicking. Because a democracy is a falsehood if it is done on an empty stomach.
Absolutely.
Unless the economy of a country is strong, mere voting from season to season will not guarantee democracy. Our people are in trouble, they are poor, there is insecurity, there's enough hardship in the land, unless and until we all begin to live a much better, more standard and stable life, we can never have peace. And agriculture for us up here, occupying 76% of Nigeria's land mass, that's what we call the North, we have no excuse being poor. And you, the younger persons who are talking tonight, I'm encouraging you, I'm sure from time to time we shall meet whenever we're home here and begin to do particular things. I think the current ACF is going to drive this agenda. We will not engage too much in politics, except where it becomes necessary. We'll try to drive growth, economic growth, produce food, export, become richer as people. Then we can form a stronger middle class that can stand up to the political class and say, sorry, we don't like this. So I thank you all. And I want to say that I pray that the Almighty God will preserve you, strengthen you, so we can get there. God bless you all.
Thank you very much for those closing remarks. Thank you very much, Chief Audu Ogbeh, Samuel, Nasir Yammama, for all taking your time in this evening to engage with everyone and educate everyone about all the different challenges and opportunity within the agricultural value chain. I really appreciate your time, and I hope our audience has learned something new. And I hope beyond just listening, we can take some action points out here and continue the conversation to try to pull together what we can do to provide solutions for the agricultural sector. Thank you very much for your time. I look forward to seeing you on our next session, and stay in touch, and do drop your emails and go to our website, trilogy.net/talks, to continue the conversation. I look forward to seeing you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Good night.
Hello, Salaam Alaikum, and welcome to today's session of Trilogy Talks. My name is Fatima A.S. Muhammad, and I will be your host for today's session. I look forward to engaging with some of Nigeria's most prominent people, helping to shape our northern Nigeria. I look forward to learning with you and engaging in amazing conversation during our question and answer session. Don't forget to stay in touch by visiting our websites, trilogy.net/talks. Also, visit our forum, trilogy.net/forum, to continue the conversation and engage with like-minded people passionate about the development of Northern Nigeria. I look forward to seeing you there, and I hope you learned something great from this session.